people have probably just started to kind of watch you. You've kind of noticed over the years a certain group of people have watched you, and if you get to have a conversation with them, you usually hear something along the lines of like, I love how you always blank, or it's so great how you're always boom. Ever since I've known you, you've always been the kind of person who, this is what I've heard all the time. And for me, everyone's always, always seem to travel. You always seem to go about doing this. You always find a good, positive spin on things. You always look at things real. And I personally hear that all the time. And I'm sure you do in some kind of aspect, in some area for you. And if you don't know me, I'm Luke Fitzgerald. I was a 12-year pro basketball player overseas, and for the last 4 years I've just been traveling, really the last 5 years coming up soon. I've just been traveling around the world, currently living in Mexico, and I love making these videos to just make your life just a tad bit better. And the thing that comes to my mind is people doubt the power of example. Like, some of you all are just like, you're just an example. That's what you are. You're not a teacher maybe in your mind. You're not like someone who can explain things perfectly. You're not a great speaker maybe. You might think you're not a writer. Those are all beliefs that can be changed later on. But if I can just get you to believe that you're an example, maybe you might think, well, maybe just to my kids. You never know. I was talking the other day with someone, because I have like a little God family here in Mexico. I have a lot of them, but one that I'm really close to, that live close to me, and they have two little daughters, and their little daughters do this thing with their eyes like this all the time. And I was always wondering, like, why do they do that, And it'd been months had passed, and they always did it every time I was with them. And then one day it was the mother's birthday, and we're having a birthday party, and the mother was just kind of looking off into space, like just looking off into the distance, and she was just like, the mom was just like this. And I was like, that's where she gets it from. That's where the kids get it from. And they don't even know it. But that's just from an example. That's just from an example. Like, we are examples. There's people who see us and there's something that they take away. Everything, if you notice, if there's someone that you kind of feel not attracted to in like a physical way, but attracted to maybe their style, the way they talk, the way they create content, the way that they drive, whatever it is, you notice something. And then if you ever thought in your mind, like, I think I'm going to buy that from them. Like, not literally buy it from them, but I think I'm going to use a part of that. I've seen the way people walk. I'm like, I'm going to use that walk for a little bit. I was in Paris around Christmas time a few years ago, and I remember I was outside the store that was so, like, a very expensive store, and this guy just came walking out the store. He had, like, the perfect outfit, hair slicked back, must have been in his 50s or 60s, and he had bag full of bags. Bag full of hands, who knows? He had his hands full of bags. He walked out with the perfect confidence, and there was a guy waiting next to a car, a Bentley. I think it was probably a $250,000 car. The guy opened the trunk and it wasn't the trunk. He opened the car and put the bags in. And the guy closed the door for him, and the guy turned around, the owner of it, who came out with all the bags, and walked back into the store. Like, the proudness of the just confidence that he had no bags in his hands now. No one knew he came from that car, and he just walked through that. I remember just looking at him and be like, I think I'm going to use that. Like, being able to walk with, that's something I'm going to use. And I say that because there's people who see us and they're like, I'm going to buy that from them. And you might not think that you're being an example, or there's not, what could someone ever want from me? There's been very few people that I have, especially for people who are, when you start to really understand things, you can learn from anybody. I would love one day to just start like a TEDx talk, but for people who have failed. You only can give this talk if you've lost over $10 million. You only can give this talk if you've been married twice. You only can give this talk if you had a period of more than 10 years where you didn't speak to your kids. Because what we could do, people would be examples. Look at one of the most famous books in all time, the Bible. And Jim Rohn said the Bible is very simple. It's a book of examples and warnings. That's it. That's how he explained it. And as I thought about that more, I was just like, if we could just be an example. I don't want people to be a teacher. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be a content creator. You don't have to come up with all these amazing ideas to change the world. because you can't underestimate or doubt the power of you just being a good example. Now, I realize in these trainings, but sessions, I don't really break it down like I do in maybe a training that I run. So I want to break it down. What do you mean, Luke, a good example? How can I be a good example? Okay, you tell me that, but now what? It means you being who you are. And enough people seeing you being who you really are. It's that simple. That's my definition. You just being who you are, and the authenticity of who you are shines through anywhere. People who aren't really doing it, like, I'm actually currently in a place where it's very like American style, so everyone has big pickup trucks, everyone comes into Starbucks, funny, I'm in Starbucks, but everyone comes and does all these things. And the thing that I realize is, why do they not come across as, someone confident? Why do they come across as like macho? I talked to a friend, and I was just like, who are they trying to be? Like, who are you trying to be? And I think sometimes when we can give up who we're trying to be and just come, and I think if we naturally give up who we're trying to be and just become ourselves, I think that it becomes like a force field. So you have to look at everything like a magnet. Everything's like a magnet in life. And it doesn't matter how you change things or what you do, you're a magnet to attract what you are. And you are what you are becoming. Very powerful quote I heard it the other day, and then I read it in a book called From Trash Man to Cash Man by Myron Golden. He said the exact same quote, a little bit different. I like his spin probably a little bit better. But as I thought about it, I was like, well, if we can just be ourselves, even though most people don't know what that means, but just be you, it will be strong enough magnet than you trying to be someone else. I see a lot of people who almost, they're trying to be someone else, and it really can fool people. And then I have a conversation with them, and then I'm just like, what do you mean? What makes you think that? I talked recently about a 3-day challenge that was a 5-day challenge that I was in. And the lady asked people to just ask her a question. This lady charges $250,000 a day. That's like $32,000 a minute. Like, that's $500 and something dollars that's $33,000 an hour. That's like $500 something dollars a minute. And people are just rambling on. Just rambling. She said, phrase your questions. My question is so I can answer it. And people just ramble on. And it just lets me know like the kind of chaoticness that goes in the mind of people, where we can't even formulate our thoughts into a way that we can speak it out to people. The words we speak, the way we say them, just is a reflection of what's going on inside. If you sound chaotic when you talk, you're kind of all over the place, it must be a little bit chaotic inside. Trust me, I'm one of those people a lot of times. The thing that's helped me really the most has been learning to just like slow down. Like learning to slow down, and yeah, the words will come. And I say that because we're trying to be something, and we open our mouth, the world knows who we are. But if we can speak from just who we are, truly, like, hey, I'm just trying to figure things out. Like for me, like I travel, I help people learn languages, I help people get over their fears, I help bring people clarity on what they want, I help, businessmen free up their time, I help business women to step more into their feminine energy and be more laid back and to create things outside of it. Like I do a lot of different things. And me trying to say, well, I'm just this or I'm just this, like I just need to just be me. And sometimes it's one of the reasons why I love this content creation, because if you started my early videos, for example, you can see the evolution of my growth and where I struggled and where I was lost and where I was excited and where I was sad and where I was trying, like there's this whole timeline of things. And all of that stretches down into or breaks down into an example of just someone trying to figure it out in this world. That's the example. And hopefully there's something that I say, there's something that I do, there's an interaction that I have that allows you to see it and then think to yourself like, okay, I can use a piece of that. I can use a piece of that. It's why I believe in this. I believe in this because what you guys hearing me say are conversations that I have all the time. But usually in a one-on-one setting or maybe in a group coaching setting. But the conversations that I have here are very different because they reach a lot more people. You know, even as I moved away a little bit from one-on-one coaching because I looked at the greats, they did one to many because of the time. If I have an hour of brain power that can give out information, I would prefer to give that information out to a large group of people than to give that information out to one person unless it's very well paid, you know. And that allows me to leverage my time a little bit more, and the money that I use from the one-on-one I can use to reach more people. So I think just when you understand that just being an example, by the way, I like to flip my camera around really quick just to make sure that I'm recording. I've done some of these videos and it wasn't recording, so just double checking. So just you being an example. And one of the things I think that holds people back, I can't end the video without this. One of the things that it usually will always hold people back for being an example is wanting to be seen a certain way. You know, as I talk to people, work with people, see people, watch people, listen to people, we want to be seen a certain way. You know, you might want to be seen as someone who's got it together, but inside you're falling apart. Those are usually the people that I work with. You know, you have the dream life on the outside, the inside, it's just a total mess. And you're unhappy, but you don't bring the tears or anything out till you're inside the dream house with the windows and everything closed. And one of the things that holds us back is we want to be seen a certain way, but we're another way. So everything we do is conflicting with who we are. You know, I love staying in nice hotels and fancy hotels, and maybe there'll be a day when I actually want to do it all the time. I think I deserve to do it, but it doesn't add there's not that big of a difference for me. You know, staying in just an average hotel that's secure versus a hotel that's $25,000 a night, there's not that big of a difference. Whereas from that hotel that isn't secure, where I've been on the border for the last few days, and you have to watch out for my motorcycle, and we have to do all, and it's like that. There's a big difference. I don't want to be there anymore. Like, I would never do that again. I left it after the first night because I was like, no. But you know, I see myself here. I see myself being able to do all this stuff, but that stuff doesn't add so much to me. But it's not that I don't think that I deserve it. There used to be a point in time where I didn't think I deserved it because I thought people wouldn't relate to me. And I thought if I did that stuff, people would just be like, oh, he's not being him. But the reality is I do like that stuff sometimes. I do look like my expensive coffees and nice gadgets, and that's who I am. But if I were to try to portray myself as someone who's something that I'm not, what happens is that energy, remember the magnet, that magnet attracts different people. People wonder, why do I attract so many fake people? Well, you are a magnet. Think about that. I'm getting goosebumps saying it. Someone has to tell you, why do I keep attracting all these fake people into my life? Well, you're a magnet. I look back over my, especially pro basketball career, because I went out and partied and everything so much. I'm like, why do I always attract these fake people that just want one thing? Well, what are you after? What are you after that even allows them to notice you and to be in their magnetic sphere? What places are you hanging out? You know, sometimes when we just think of like, okay, not what am I attracting, but what do I want to attract? And what would attract what I want to attract? Fishermen know it better than anything, because you have to think of what do you want to catch first. That's going to determine what line do I bring, which fishing rod do I bring, what the bait is that I'm going to use, where am I going to go. But all that's determined based off of when you know what you're fishing for. You know, some of you guys are just fishing anywhere and just doing, like, I'm just going off topic a little bit, but just fish anywhere and hope you get something big is not always the best approach. Are there any of these, the thing that I'm looking for, is it in this area that I'm searching? So I want you to think about this. When it comes back to an example, for you being who you are, you will attract the people by just being who you are. You know, a lot of fear comes up. We could dive into it about how, you know, well, if I do this, then people are gonna, those thoughts will always be there. I promise you, they're not going anywhere. They just get quieter, and you learn to listen to the other ones. And I say all this because until you can realize, I hope you guys can hear me. I was the only one in Starbucks. But until you can realize that just you being who you are is good enough, just there. And sometimes if you can't grab onto the good enough, if you just realize that who you are can help just one person out of the 8 billion people in the world, if you can just believe it can help one person, if we can meet there, can we meet there? Just believe that who you are can help one person. And then let's just stretch a little bit and say that one person isn't going to get to meet you in person. They're going to randomly find you online. Can that make you maybe step into, okay, maybe I can create something online, being just an example, sharing what I go through, sharing what I've learned from it. Sharing just what you've learned from what you've been through can help save people years of their life. Like, I'm going to have something come out soon just for pro athletes, because not that I say I wasted time, because I had a fun time and a great time, and they're memories that I often look back on. But during that time period, I was looking for the wrong thing. I spent my life in avoidance when I could have been looking for something that was more beneficial during that time period. But at the time, I had no idea. You know, no one ever told me that, you know, the most important decision you're going to make is the person that you choose to spend your life with. There's no decision that's more important than that. And I don't remember ever talking about that in high school or college or anywhere. I never learned about that. I never learned how to choose that. And I thought about it the other day, and I'll make a separate video about it. I was like, well, what is the value of being with, this is totally off topic, but this is just the idea that I had, was just like, what is the value of something? And I was thinking for myself, like, for me, what's the value of an amazing woman? Like, I think about what's the value of that? And I was like, well, that's kind of hard to calculate. But then I thought to myself, well, what does it cost you to have a bad one? Thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, not getting to see your children, you know, not having a home, not having a place for them to grow up, you know, not being secure, your sanity, like, and then when you start to look at like what the cost of not having it is, it kind of makes you see the value of having it. You know, the value of having something that I think all the time, just looking at this for a perfect example, is like, I think of like, what's the value of this GPS that I carry on my motorcycle? It's like, well, you know, it's a couple $100, it's a nice value. But then I think, what's the cost of not having it? Being lost, middle of the rain, no service, flat tire, not knowing where you are. Now what does that cost you? You need a hotel. And we start to look at things through that lens. Do we look at the lens like this is what we do, what I do with clients, what I do with people, is getting people to see things through that lens. Look at the lens of what it's costing you, because then you'll realize the value a lot more. And I say that because when you realize that you have an example, you are an example, you can be an example, and yet you're not doing it. It's just one of them, and I know you guys are heartfelt people, or I wouldn't be saying this. What ends up happening is now you're not there. So the people who could use your help and use you as an example are finding some other person to use an example, and probably someone who doesn't maybe care about them or anything, and you'd be a much better example. That's what I'd say. So with that being said, just being an example is enough. And ways you can do that is sharing yourself, sharing your thoughts, share what goes on in your mind, share stories, share transformational stories, share stories that make you be like, wow, I learned a lot. Like, when you do stuff like that, like, you're able to, how do I say it? You're able to have an impact that you never knew. You know, I believe that when you start speaking your truth and you start speaking from a place of like, really, this is who I am, and I own this person who I am, who I'm choosing to be. I am is the most powerful words in the dictionary, in our language, as I am. And when we start to do it, you open like this magnetic field of blessings and things that come your way. And here's the crazy thing that I realized, is they come out of ways that you never expect, and from people who you never expected. The person who you just randomly met may be the person that can bless you tremendously. I was reading in a book, I can't remember what book I was reading, but it said that, I think it was Mike Murdock who said it, and the person quoted them in the book. It might have been 40 questions that can change your life or something. And it said, there's always someone I'm paraphrasing, it's always someone around you who's watching you, that when you say the right thing, they have the ability to bless your life in ways you never even mattered, that you never even knew was possible, And when you realize that just being an example, if you realize what being a good example, just being yourself, when you realize the doors that could open up, financially, opportunity, options, people helping you out, when you realize that, for me, I realized that that's when the change really happens. Because you realize that life is about helping others, and as you help other people, you naturally get taken care of. I don't know how it works. I don't know how I've been able to do this for so long and like be able to sustain what I do. But one thing I can tell you is that the more seeds I plant and keep on moving forward, the more things grow and come back to me in ways that I don't even remember, that I didn't even see coming. But when they do arrive to me, I do believe that it is possible. I do believe like, oh yeah, I deserve this. I do believe like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right, of course. With a grateful, of course. But that's something that for me that has really helped me, and just me, like I say, being an example, just sharing that with people. Not sure how I'm gonna do it, how I'm gonna phrase it, how I'm gonna package it, how I'm gonna sell it, but just being that example at first has the ability to help so many people. So with that, yeah, I think that's kind of it, guys, for today. Take that in, watch this again, take some notes. I'm telling you, these videos that I create now, they can change your life. They can change your life if you let it. Be blessed.